The shuttle descended through the pale blue sky of New Geneva, its sleek Dravari hull casting a long shadow across the Academy's parade grounds. Below, ranks of human cadets stood in precise formation, boots aligned, eyes forward, their silence carrying a weight that pressed heavier than any anthem. Commander Adrian Holt waited at the center, hands clasped behind his back, his uniform immaculate but unadorned. He had no need for ceremony, discipline itself was enough of a display. The hatch hissed open, and Commander Thrax Varuin emerged. His robes shimmered in the sunlight, woven with the insignia of the Dravari Empire, a crest meant to radiate superiority. His head tilted upward as if the air here was unfit for his lungs. Behind narrow, reptilian eyes gleamed arrogance honed over decades of service. He had expected little from this posting, a ceremonial inspection of a species barely crawling onto the galactic stage. Holt stepped forward. Commander Varuin, welcome to Fort Resolute. Thrax's gaze flicked across the cadets, then back to Holt. Fort Resolute, he repeated, as though the name itself was excessive. I anticipated something more grand. Holt allowed himself the faintest smile. We value function over grandeur. The Academy is not built to impress guests. It is built to forge soldiers. Thrax's lips curved in disdain. Soldiers, I see children mimicking discipline, puppets marching on command. This parade tells me little. Then let us show you more than a parade, Holt replied evenly. They began to walk, the alien's boots tapping softly against the stone walkway, Holt's stride steady beside him. Statues lined the entrance, bronze figures locked in battle, men and women cast in eternal defiance. Thrax paused before one, an armored human raising a shattered flag. Crude, Thrax muttered. Such obsession with relics of primitive conflict. Surely you know the Union long ago abandoned such barbarism. Primitive, Holt said quietly. Yes, but barbarism teaches lessons that linger longer than peace. Every figure here carries a story. They remind us what was paid to stand here today. Paid in waste, Thrax said dismissively. The galaxy advances by order, not slaughter. Holt gave no reply. The statues spoke loudly enough. Inside the main hall, banners stretched across vaulted ceilings, each embroidered with names and dates: Earth wars, colonial uprisings, the first Martian rebellion, the lunar sieges. Beneath them stood cadets at attention, faces resolute, shoulders squared. Thrax's step slowed, his eyes flicking upward at the vast tapestry of humanity's scars. You glorify death, he sneered. We memorialize sacrifice, Holt corrected. His voice remained calm, but his eyes held steel. To us, every name is a reminder that survival was never gifted, it was earned. Thrax clicked his tongue, unconvinced. He moved on quickly, unwilling to linger where shadows of history threatened his certainty. The tour shifted through training halls, rows of weapons from across centuries. Rusted bayonets beside gleaming plasma carbines, ballistic rifles next to compact Gauss rifles. To Thrax, it looked like a cluttered museum, a species grasping desperately at identity. To Holt, it was proof of adaptability. Still clinging to ancient toys? Thrax asked, pausing at a glass case containing a battered assault rifle marked 1943. We master every tool at hand, Holt said. Old or new, it makes no difference when survival demands it. Survival, Thrax echoed with a thin smile. Always survival, yet where is refinement? Where is restraint? A true civilization evolves beyond its blood-soaked infancy. Holt leaned closer. Civilizations that forget their infancy rarely survive their maturity. For the first time, Thrax faltered, though he masked it with a snort. They continued until the hall opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling high and lined with observation galleries. Below, cadets prepared for drills, equipping themselves with armor and weapons, their expressions hard with focus. The floor shifted into modular terrain, ruined buildings rising from steel platforms, streets forming under hydraulic rumble. Thrax raised a brow ridge, a theater of destruction. Holt gestured to the cadets strapping on helmets, rifles slung across backs. Urban annihilation drills. We test them against scenarios where order is gone, where chaos reigns. Survival depends on clarity, precision, and resolve. The alien's tone dripped disdain. Pointless savagery. True soldiers fight with precision, not in the dirt of collapsing ruins. Holt's voice sharpened just slightly. War rarely waits for clean fields and neat lines. We train for the wars we may face, not the ones we wish for. A silence stretched, filled by the mechanical clank of cadets checking weapons and the low hum of energy shields activating. Thrax's eyes narrowed as he studied their faces. Young, yes, but hardened by something more than drills. He could not yet name it, but it unsettled him. He forced a laugh, brittle and sharp. So this is your great academy, a spectacle of rubble and smoke, a barbarian's playground. Holt turned, his gaze unflinching. You have seen statues and banners, that was memory. Now you will see living proof. Watch closely, Commander Varruin. These cadets are not here to entertain you. Thrax crossed his arms, tail twitching faintly. Then what are they here for? Holt's answer came without hesitation. To survive, to ensure that if ever pressed against extinction, humanity does not break. A distant klaxon blared. Lights dimmed across the chamber, replaced by a blood-red glow. In the galleries above, officers leaned forward, observing. The floor below shifted fully into a ruined cityscape, shattered walls casting jagged shadows, smoke venting through hidden ducts. Cadets filed into the chaos with unnerving discipline. No shouting, no waste of motion. They vanished into alleys, shadows swallowing their silhouettes. Thrax tilted his head, suddenly alert. What are they preparing for? Holt's reply was soft but carried like thunder. The simulation begins. Consider this your first lesson. The alien swallowed, the taste of arrogance souring at the back of his throat. For the first time since he set foot on human soil, Commander Thrax Varruin felt the faintest touch of unease. And Holt, standing tall in the crimson glow, knew it was only the beginning. The simulation chamber roared to life. Sirens wailed, metal groaned, and the air filled with smoke that curled like ghostly hands across the ruined streets. From the galleries above, Thrax Varruin leaned forward, disbelief etched across his scaled features. He had expected spectacle, some crude mimicry of war. What he witnessed instead unsettled him deeply. Human cadets moved like predators unleashed. They slipped into alleys, ducked behind shattered walls, and vanished into cover without a command shouted. The silence was eerie. No barked orders, no wasted words. Their communication was quick, sharp, mostly through hand signals and the faint crackle of encrypted comms. Holographic drones descended, projecting hostile targets, armored constructs mimicking enemy troops. The moment they appeared, the humans struck. Gunfire ripped through the chamber, a brutal staccato of lead and plasma. Cadets shifted from ballistic rifles to energy weapons without hesitation, slinging one across their shoulders and bringing the next to bear. Each movement was efficient, practiced, devoid of hesitation. Thrax's tail flicked nervously. Why arm them with such primitive firearms? He asked, his voice edged with disdain that failed to hide his unease. Holt did not look at him. His eyes followed the cadets. Because war does not wait for the right weapon, it waits for the right will. They learn to kill with whatever they hold. One squad lured a wave of drones into a crumbling street, then detonated charges placed minutes earlier. The explosion thundered through the chamber, shattering facades and raining debris. Cadets swarmed the survivors, blades flashing as they engaged in brutal close combat. Thrax flinched as one cadet drove a bayonet into a drone's chest cavity before snatching its fallen rifle and turning it back against another target. "Savages," he muttered, though his voice was softer now. Holt finally glanced at him. "Survivors," he corrected. The simulation escalated. Firestorms ignited along rooftops. Cadets adapted instantly, rerouting, using the smoke as cover rather than hindrance. One soldier, cut off from his unit, feigned death beneath rubble until enemies passed. Then he rose, silent as a shadow, and eliminated them with ruthless precision. Thrax's composure faltered. His claws tapped nervously against the railing. This is not strategy, this is slaughter. Holt's reply was calm, steady. Strategy is surviving the fight you cannot afford to lose. That is what they learn here. The last construct fell with a shriek of sparking metal. Silence swept the chamber, broken only by cadets regrouping, weapons checked, wounded carried. No cheers, no triumph, only discipline. Thrax exhaled slowly, realizing he had been holding his breath. He turned to Holt with narrowed eyes. You trained them as if extinction were certain. Holt did not answer. Instead, he gestured for Thrax to follow. Reluctantly, the alien commander complied, though a faint unease coiled in his chest. They moved down a narrow corridor until heavy doors opened into a cavernous chamber. It was colder here, the air heavy, lit only by pale beams of light that traced across endless walls of stone. Names were etched into every surface, millions upon millions, stretching farther than the eye could follow. Thrax halted, his voice rough. What is this place? Holt's tone dropped to something quiet, reverent. The Memorial Hall. Every war, every fallen soldier, every civilian cut down. These are our dead. Thrax's eyes darted across the endless walls. The sheer scale unsettled him more than the drills had. So many wasted lives. No, Holt said firmly. Not wasted, paid. Sacrifice is the price humanity has always paid to survive. They walked deeper. Thrax's claws scraped the floor unconsciously. The silence pressed on him, broken only by Holt's measured steps. Every row of names seemed heavier than the last. And though Thrax tried to look away, the names surrounded him, suffocating in their immensity. At the center of the hall stood a stone pillar rising high into the ceiling. It bore no names, only an inscription, "Never again shall we kneel." Thrax stopped before it, his throat dry. You build monuments to defiance. Holt's gaze held steady. We build vows. Every stone here promises that humanity will never be chained, never underestimated, never erased. For the first time, Thrax had no immediate retort. The arrogance that had carried him from his shuttle wavered. Something older stirred in his chest, not respect, not yet, but the beginnings of fear. He tried to mask it with sarcasm. And do you think such vows impress the galaxy, that old ghosts will protect you? No, Holt said softly, but they remind us that we protect ourselves. The alien commander turned away, but unease lingered in the flick of his tail and the tension stiffening his shoulders. His voice dropped into a mutter, perhaps not meant to be heard. Too dangerous, too unstable. Holt caught the words but chose silence. He let them hang in the cold air, their truth growing heavier with each step. They left the Memorial Hall and entered another secured passage. Reinforced blast doors loomed ahead, armored thick enough to withstand orbital bombardment. Warning sigils glowed faint red across the steel. Thrax paused, suspicion tightening his features. What lies beyond this? Holt stopped, facing him squarely. His eyes carried the weight of every name carved into stone. You've seen cadets in training. Now you will see them in extinction. The words sent an involuntary shiver down Thrax's spine. Extinction. Holt pressed his palm against the scanner. Locks disengaged with a thunderous hiss, gears grinding as the massive doors groaned open. A rush of cold air spilled out, carrying the scent of ozone and iron. Inside, rows of cadets stood silently in heavier armor, weapons strapped and ready. But their eyes, those eyes froze Thrax's breath. They were not the eager stares of recruits. They were calm, hollow, prepared for a war already lost. The alien's voice cracked despite himself. What is this? Holt's reply was quiet, resolute. The last lesson. extinction protocols. When survival is no longer possible, they learn how to make humanity's end cost so much that no enemy dares bring it about. Thrax recoiled, a chill crawling down his spine. These humans did not merely prepare to fight wars. They prepared to fight after death itself reached for them. Holt's eyes narrowed, his voice a blade of steel. "Watch carefully, Commander Varuen. You came here seeking weakness. What you find now will haunt you." The blast doors sealed shut behind them with a sound like a tomb closing. The chamber lights dimmed, plunging the vast hall into twilight. Red sigils glowed faintly across the reinforced walls, their warning unmistakable. A heavy silence settled, broken only by the metallic rhythm of boots striking steel as the cadets advanced toward the simulated battlefield. Their faces were unreadable, resolute, devoid of triumph, stripped of everything but the certainty of duty. Commander Thrax Varuen stood at the observation deck, unease gnawing at him. He had mocked humans as reckless, emotional creatures. Yet here, staring down at their steady movements, he saw no chaos, no instability. What unnerved him was their calm, predators preparing not for victory, but for annihilation. Adrian Holt's voice carried quietly beside him. "This is humanity's final doctrine. When defeat is inevitable, survival denied. They are taught to fight in extinction." The alien commander's frill stiffened. Extinction, madness. No army trains for a war already lost. Holt's gaze never wavered. "That is why no army frightens us. Others prepare for conquest. We prepare for the day the stars themselves turn against us." A klaxon sounded. The simulation activated. The terrain reconfigured into a wasteland, scorched cities reduced to skeletal ruins, skis filled with the oppressive rumble of enemy fleet holograms. The cadets entered without hesitation, dispersing into fire and shadow. From above, Thrax watched them deploy. There were no formations, no rigid commands. Squads melted into terrain, each acting as an independent blade of the same relentless will. Some planted mines beneath simulated streets. Others crawled through sewers to emerge behind enemy lines. A sudden blast ripped the ground apart. Dusk clouded the chamber, and through it the cadets surged forward. They fought like phantoms, striking fast, retreating faster, dragging enemies into traps that consumed entire platoons at once. Thrax's claws scraped against the railing. "They waste themselves. This is butchery." "No," Holt said. "This is denial. If extinction comes, we will deny the enemy peace. Every step into our ashes will be paid in blood." A squad triggered charges beneath a crumbling tower. It collapsed, burying pursuing constructs beneath tons of debris. Another squad, cornered, feigned surrender only to detonate hidden grenades as the enemy closed in. The sacrifice annihilated both sides. Thrax recoiled, appalled. "They kill themselves willingly." Holt's tone was iron. If survival cannot be purchased, vengeance is currency enough. The alien felt heat in his chest, a pressure like panic. This is not discipline. This is terror weaponized." "Exactly," Holt said softly. The simulation escalated. Enemy holograms unleashed orbital fire. Cities disintegrated in gouts of flame. Yet cadets persisted. They tunneled beneath ruins, hijacked enemy drones, converted debris into weapons. Every loss only hardened those who remained. One cadet, his leg crushed, dragged himself forward with rifle in hand. Instead of retreating, he turned his weapon skyward, firing futile bursts into the burning heavens until enemy constructs closed around him. His last act was to detonate the charges strapped to his chest, taking them all with him. Thrax's throat tightened. Why would you teach this? No empire in the Union dares cultivate such desperation." Holt's eyes glimmered cold. "Because desperation is the only constant in our history. We have been cornered, enslaved, starved, bombarded. Every time we learn to fight harder. If the galaxy takes everything from us, we will make it choke on our remains." Thrax turned sharply, his composure crumbling. You speak of ruin as though it is victory. Holt met his gaze with steady calm. No, I speak of survival measured not in years but in memory. If humanity falls, the echo of our defiance will outlive us. That is victory enough. The alien commander's jaw tightened. He looked back to the battlefield below, and what he saw hollowed him. The cadets launched their final maneuver, an orchestrated collapse of every remaining unit into one last strike. They surged as a single wave, riddled with wounds yet unstoppable. Explosives detonated across the field, a chain reaction that consumed both sides. Fire spread until nothing remained but scorched earth and silence. The simulation ended. Darkness reclaimed the chamber. When the lights rose again, cadets stood where they had begun, silent, steady, alive only in the discipline carved into their bones. Thrax gripped the railing, his claws trembling. His voice was hoarse. You are monsters. Holt stepped forward, his expression unreadable. No, we are human. The words carried more weight than any threat. They were not boast, not warning, merely truth. Thrax staggered back, shaken. He had come seeking proof of humanity's weakness. Instead, he had found something worse than strength. He had found resolve sharper than any weapon, a willingness to turn death itself into a tool. His voice broke into a whisper. If your people ever turn against the Union. Holt cut him off, his tone as cold as stone. Then the Union will learn what it means to stand against extinction. Silence pressed heavy between them. In Thrax's mind, calculations spiraled. How many fleets? How many worlds? How much blood would it take to break a species that trained to fight even in death? The answer clawed at him. Too much. Far too much. He turned away, unable to look at the cadets any longer. His steps faltered as he left the chamber, the air feeling heavier with every stride. His arrogance was gone, stripped away by dread. At the shuttle, he cast one final glance back. Holt stood unmoving, a sentinel at the gates of humanity's future. The cadets behind him did not waver, their eyes cold with the knowledge of what they had just demonstrated. When Thrax finally boarded, his report to the Dravari Empire formed in his mind. He could not recommend contempt. He could not advise dismissal. He could only deliver a warning, never provoke them, never corner them. Humanity will not yield. They will fight beyond reason, beyond hope, beyond extinction itself. The shuttle lifted into the sky, carrying him away, but not freeing him. The memory of what he had seen clung like a shadow that would never fade. He had come seeking weakness. He returned carrying fear.